Let's see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome to the broadcast, everybody. Just doing a little mix while a few people are gathering in here. Kind of an impromptu release Sundays live, but we wanted to make contact. Missed last week. Been deep in the throes of preparing for another program for the fall. And just making sure my sound is good. Good, all right. Aloha, Madeline. Thank you for joining us.
That's me.
That's actually a different Madeline. That's a Madeline in the chat room, actually.
Yeah, I know. That's
Oh,
me.
okay. Okay, you're on it. Okay. Got it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, aloha, Rob.
Yeah, aloha, Rob.
What up, Rob? Just doing a little mix while a few people are gathering on in before we get started. Little impromptu release Sundays live. Got a magical guest on the broadcast with me, Maddy Smith from Barefoot Chocolatini.
And my dog.
Oh, mute that dog. Mute that dog in this mix. Mute that dog so we don't hear the dog in the mix. We're going to be talking about the dark side of the New Cage movement and spiritual polarity. We got a deep one. I'm just going to do a little short little show, just a little decode. Maddy and I have been talking about a lot of this stuff offline, and yeah, our challenges with it. And Yeah, we just had to do this, and I thought no one better to help me dive into this. I came across something on our platform, and yeah, it was a beautiful decode from this guy, Sammy. What's his name? Sammy Richard. And yeah, he goes deep in it. And yeah, I definitely think it's worth diving into. We got to keep peeling back the layers on this. So yeah, that's what we're going to get into today. So thanks for joining us, everybody. We're going to talk a little bit more, just updates. We got a fall program going. I'm working on the newsletter. I'm trying to get to everybody that's reached out, and shifted our bigger program to January, more of like a winter gig. And just deep in the throes of post-production on Release Part 2, and preparing for 4 more awesome practitioners to come through the fold, getting more beacons of self-healing out there in the world. And yeah, check out this channel. It's got all kinds of stuff in kind of a forward, if you will, to what we're getting into. There's all kinds of empowering material on our channel to activate and heal yourself and work through the layers we're going to dive into of just a fractal of the psychosis that humanity's in right now. Really, you know, it's a lot. So check out our channel here on YouTube. It's got all kinds of content, including the film Release, which came out in March and feels like it's already kind of a ship that's sailed, but really it's only gone out to a very small fractal of the collective. And I feel like this is a good example of something that can really help open your eyes to a lot of what we're going to get into and bring more gnosis, more knowledge. So we will be doing more interviews with awesome individuals on Release Sundays Live. We're just getting into it. Probably give you a bird's eye view back into our training as well, because it will be on one of the Sundays. And then we have our show every Monday, 6 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, where we go more into the intel decodes we can't do on YouTube. Just kind of is what it is. And we go through a lot of the intel on our intelligence channel, at all caps MBMT channel on Telegram, updating it all the time. Lots of good stuff in there. Whoa, so much has been happening in the background. But here we focus more on our divinity and exposing the aspects that separate us from that divinity, because we all are humans. It's a color people. Aloha, Sophia. Heyo. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, girl.
And we're human, form of light in manifestation, manifested in body. All of this really is always been about something greater. It's one of the greater deceptions is none of us have perspective, because the concept of prophecy has been kind of thrown to the background, if you will. And yeah, but to see hundreds of prophecies have actually even been formulated into a timeline, kind of giving you perspective on where we're at pre-tribulation into the Great Tribulation. And this is really what it ultimately was about, was a great split in the pathway. What are you going to choose? You're going to choose serving the self or serving God. And ultimately that has been what we've all gotten separated into. So I want to play this little 5 minutes of segment from a very good decode that I found, and I just recorded this piece of it just for a little perspective. And you know, there's no middle ground really. It's choosing to serve the greater good, call it God, the collective consciousness, matrix of consciousness, or serving the self, which in the New Cage movement has become an illusion, because the self has now been justified through the spiritual means of your spiritual self, but it's still in the identification of the individual self, the I am.
You are either one who loves yourself or the Lord. The group of people who love themselves can be found in 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1 to 5. It says, "But understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty. For people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness, but denying its power. Avoid such people. The first thing we see about those in the first group is that they are lovers of self. This is the defining characteristic of those in the first group. Everything else they do flows out of a need to fulfill one's own desires. This leads to people loving money more than God, loving pleasure more than God, being proud and heartless against God, and the rest of the characteristics mentioned on that list. The truth is that all of our hearts are naturally that way. If we do not know Jesus, on a whole, we do what is best for ourselves. We become selfish and seek to only fulfill our own pleasure. For those who are followers of Jesus, He becomes our first and most important priority. God is actually like the paper we write our priorities on. He becomes the base and center of everything we do. While our other priorities change, God does not. However, for those in this first group, their desires and pleasure become the paper on which they write their priorities. Whatever makes them feel good and satisfied becomes the center. This is why 1 Timothy says that they are lovers of self. The first group may actually look like they have the right priorities. In 1 Timothy, it says they may even appear godly. However, their godliness is surface level. They look good on the outside, but their hearts are evil. Jesus talks about a group of Pharisees with the same problem. He says in Matthew 23, verse 27, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like whitewashed tombs, which on the outside appear beautiful, but inside they are full of dead men's bones and all uncleanness." Jesus calls them whitewashed tombs. On the outside of the building is a new, fresh coat, but inside is nothing but dead bodies. Our heart matters more than how we make the outside look. Let's say I offered to get you a delicious bowl of chicken noodle soup. I get a bowl that has a lid on it. I start cleaning the outside of the bowl to get it ready for the chicken noodle soup. Matter of fact, I scrub the outside of it until it is spotless. I tell you the bowl is clean, but then you look inside. There's old ketchup, mayo, a hot dog, a soggy bun, mustard, and soy sauce left on the inside. Would you eat my chicken noodle soup out of that bowl? Of course not. While the outside looks clean, the inside is a mess. Jesus is trying to show us the same thing. It doesn't matter how godly we appear if our hearts are unclean. The first group is full of people who may look godly, but have unclean hearts. The second group of people are those who love Jesus in these last days. Acts 2, verse 17 says, "And in the last days it shall be, God declares, that I will pour out my Spirit on all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams." This group of people will have the Spirit poured out on them. In the Old Testament, the Holy Spirit rested on people and equipped them for the job God had for them. After the job,
You can tell it's a screen record. Oh, goodness. So I just want to, first of all, I want to reflect that anyone who's hearing this, that's triggered on the aspect that this is definitely, this video was recorded from, some church that did this, Grace for Purpose. Anyone who's triggered in the way they reference Jesus, you should look at that. Just because it's a reference for one who was divinely connected to source and was embodied in selflessness. So it's kind of like it's a keyword that has a representation to it. So, because we've been so triggered around, even with that name as a reference in our culture, to be like cheesy or extreme, or so many of the aspects of religion that we see that are distortions still, you know? And I just want to reflect that what's beautiful about this ancient text, and when it speaks of this, there's so many metaphors. The whitewashed tomb, the dirty bowl that's clean on the outside. We have been hollowed out to a surface level, and I think that what we're about to read into and decode on really just deeply reflects that, and how much that hollowing has been of the mind and psychological, to disconnect the heart, and why this really is a war of the mind. And I'm just throwing in the last little messages before we dive into it, because this visual is such a powerful metaphor for what we're gonna read and what we're gonna kind of pick apart. And like you said, I just want to get into it because it's juicy, and you could just pick apart like many sections of it. So, do you want to start? Maddy thought we should put it up on the screen so you guys can read it, which I think is smart, because I was just gonna read it from my phone. But I'm happy to begin if you want, unless you want to start it.
Sure. Yeah. I just want to say hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. These things are super intense, but there's also some good news. So it's not just a war on the mind. It's most definitely a war on the heart, and the heart's been inverted, and we got to twist it, flip it, and rewrite the script, get it back in alignment. So let's start by just reading it. And here we go. There is a dark polarity to spirituality which exists on multiple dimensions, but this can only ever mimic true source intelligence. This power is wielded by running inversions through exploiting and siphoning creation energy to powerful artificial grids that feed a parasitic consciousness that has severed its own source connection due to deep fragmentation. They have become a dependent on others' vitality. And if we look at what we see on social media today, it's, am I perfect enough? Do I look good enough? Are people jealous of me enough? How can I rub this in their faces enough? Do I have enough power from all of these people in my fake digital reality versus what is showing up in physical, tangible, real reality, right? So
it's true. And it's, these artificial systems, this is such a powerful image for that. By the way, this artist did this as her almost inspiration to some kind of awakening we're going to have from technology. That's literally what she had written about this piece, like as if it was like inspiring. To me, it's just extremely disturbing and reflective of a whole other avenue of what this means. But in her reality, this was like some beautiful expression of how we're going to go to the next level with this technology. But the reality is the technology is designed to engage your neurology to disconnect from real life. We have dopamine and serotonin that stimulate your neurons, your neurology, give you a feeling of accomplishment, fulfillment. You're getting programmed artificially in a way that real life doesn't engage you the same. And especially the children's brains that are growing are going to, and are being codependently engineered around this dopamine and serotonin so that they're less engaged in real life. And I've witnessed it sadly with my older two kids, as much as I've protected them with the pandemic happening. We ended up having to homeschool and use virtual interfaces a lot of the times. And then it just kind of opened the door really from there. And also their need for more, active schedules where we had to be in touch with them. So it made sense to have a communication device. And so we're locking it down and going back to, seriously restricted tech. Because we have other friends that have said we took our kids' tech away and it's been 3 months and they're like different kids again. They're like back to a more formatted, interactive child. So it continues on and says this corruption gradually infiltrated Earth and its ley lines to collect quanta through the lunar matrix and Saturn control base. By manipulating the Earth's magnetic fields, this distortion has severely regressed our DNA and led to the formation of shadow selves that can be exploited through the unconscious so that we continue to fuel the phantom reality and its parallel timelines that digress from source or God. Deep. That's a deep one right there, because again, a certain level of prerequisite knowledge is going to make this so much more meaningful to you, depending on how you've studied this artificial matrix that we're in. And the reality is we have been chemically and genetically dumbed down and handicapped intergenerationally for years now. That's why we have a lot of the attributes to the mass psychosis, whether it be the ADHD or the ADD, which seemed to just spring up after the 1990s fat-free stage where everyone was having polyunsaturated fatty acids, and that was affecting the genetic constitute of the humans that came from there. And of course the bombardments of fluoride and atrazine in the water, which they've shown to actually mess with the this is where a lot of the gender psychosis is coming in from, is we have been genetically compromised, friends, and chemically toxified and dumbed down. And the way that works is in your genetics, you have things called codons, and codons are storage keepers of information. And it's actually the epigenome that accesses the codons. The epigenome is like the user. And so when you get markers in epigenetic markers that get damaged, you lose access to those codons. And so it starts shutting down your system. And by the way, those codons can do some really amazing things. In fact, intergenerationally, we've been getting our epigenetics damaged for quite some time by those that understand how those epigenetics work. And the end result has been a codependency in a system that is this artificial system that's been inlaid, has come about, and we've acquiesced to it through the concept of this recreational society that's formed, really under the vise of a Babylonian civilization that's created good times, easier times, which has created weak people. And unfortunately, weak people make a mess and create hard times. And unfortunately, we aren't in a stronger stage for a really big spiritual unfoldment that's set cosmologically moving into a new age. So it's rough. And to add to what Maddy shared in the superficiality of our virtual realities and all of their false personas and public profiles that can be created, while very little accountability is taken in the real world for your own actions and your own life and your localized circuits and relationships. We are a sad generation with happy pictures. This is a deep statement because that's what we have. Because nowadays on the virtual templates, you can just add a filter and Photoshop that and stretch those eyes super big. And I actually look through people's profiles to filter and see the fakeness of people and how they add these filters, Because if you didn't think somebody's somewhat intelligent, they could look through a bunch of your pictures and actually see the fake one that's in your profile is not how you really look from like 10 other pictures maybe that you have in your thing. So be sure to delete those so you can really, really embody that that stretched out filter eyeball, high cheek stretch look.
What do you mean we can just catfish forevermore and nobody will ever have successful relationships till the end of time? Bring in the sex robots?
That's
like,
one of the
what's next?
goals. That's one of the goals. Oh my goodness. You want to hit this one? We're just going to keep dissecting.
To break out means to first know what it is happening or what is happening, and to be able to witness it from a place of neutral objectivity without continuing to invest our fear and unresolved emotion. This is the lifeblood they require in order or in the first place. When we reclaim our life force, the false reality matrix dissolves, leaving only what's pure and aligned. This is where we're at now, I think. This can be destabilizing for those that are still clinging to false identities as the timelines correct.
100%.
Happening now.
Yeah, because the deception from the ego comes in this ego mind. It doesn't want to die. And so it shifts to the strategy of denial. And denial denies you into the new age. Just keeping it real. Because, first of all, our Father, the Creator, just like for me as a parent, I can always forgive my kids unless they're not aware of what they did. If there's no awareness, how can I forgive you? So if we don't have awareness for this and we're in denial down to the final throes of our fate or destiny, it's a huge deciding factor spiritually in your review process. Because we all have a shitbaggery review. And it's going to be beautiful and horrible for you because you're going to be encapsulated with so much love when you transition from this realm. And you're going to be fully accepted and you're going to remember everything and it's all connected and we're all part of this universal consciousness and you're going to be like encapsulated in that love while you have to go through your shitbag reel of your life and all of the illusions and the trickery of the mind and the ego and external energetic parasites as well that maybe you invited in to manipulate you into an illusion of separation. And you're going to get to see all of that. It's going to be inescapable. You won't be able to make excuses around it. You won't be able to gaslight like we can still do in this world. All of that, it's all going to get stripped away. So the goal is to bring that awareness and awaken before you go through that, so you don't have to go through that. Because purity is our natural state. It's not something to go looking for on the outside. It's something you need to remember. And that means stripping away the false layers of programming to unveil what's authentic beneath. When all is said and done, it's love that prevails because this is the force that unifies all creation. Self-love is the gateway to extending that to others unconditionally. And that really is what it comes down to, folks, is that in order for you to unconditionally love others, you have to unconditionally love yourself, but you haven't because you got programmed into what I call the emotional currency exchange. Because love is three things: the love God has for you, the love you're supposed to embody here for others. It's unconditional, it's unlimited, and it's eternal, meaning it can't cease to exist. So if you say to somebody, I don't love you anymore, that just means that you've never learned what love is. You have gauged the emotional currency exchange, which is saying, I'm not going to pay for that anymore. See, because we use emotion as currency. And our parents teach us it. If you're a good girl, I'll give you that love. If you're a bad girl, I'll take that love away. And so we learn this conditional emotional currency exchange, and we start doing it to ourselves. We give ourselves love if we do something we think is cool, or if we do something the ego doesn't like, we beat ourselves up, or we make excuses. And this is where kind of the narcissism entrapment can come in, to make it so that you're never accountable for anything because it's always somebody else's fault. My mom called it the blame game. But people that play the blame game tend to fall into this narcissistic entrapment, which really is a Luciferian psychology, which is the opposition to the Christ consciousness. You can see this duality and the split within itself. So real love is unconditional, but you're incapable of doing it unless you build it for yourself. And then it's this sustainable chamber of love that it dissolves your compulsion to put those conditions on other people. You naturally stop conditionally loving people because you realize you were putting conditions because you needed to get their love in a certain way, in whatever manipulative form that you made them jump through hoops to get that love, and played the emotional currency exchange game because you even felt the compulsion to play that game because you didn't have a sustainable unconditional love chamber for yourself. And so because you weren't full here, you looked to fill up in the illusion of this love that's not real love. In fact, if we look through history around the 16th century, the Romanticism movement really created this distortion of what love is, and put it to this flutter of the heart, or really made the infatuation kind of obsession factor, but also none of it was ever about having this loving relationship with yourselves. We have been conditioned to unconsciously judge ourselves in a negative light, and so we keep self-sabotaging, projecting that self-loathing onto others, caught in the victim-perpetrator web. Our light fades, and the heart blackens, outsourcing the purity of our essence to those that are even more fractured. So this is another way of really decoding the lack of unconditional love within, and how it can fractal out into this manipulative game that we don't even realize that we've really just taken these bad traits on. And that's why we want to deny it, to say, oh no, this is my truth. This is how I experience things. Because we don't want to just come down to the simple fact that we have taken on some unconscious narcissistic traits within ourselves that are not healthy. They're not embodying the unconditional love. And really, by the way, can we stop saying that word? There's just love in everything that pretends to be. Unconditional love, what? As if there's a form of love that's not conditional love to unconditional love. So it's like, no, there's just love. So let's just change it in the show right now to love. And then we'll just refer to everything else as the emotional currency exchange, because it ultimately is. And that's why we feel like, if I don't pay for this and put my money here, I can put it over here. Or, oh, if I put it here, there won't be enough for over here. It still comes with this scarcity mentality around love and the energy of love. And it's poverty ridden, so it is time to reclaim our inner light and let this emanate into the field to uplift others. This isn't a self-serving conquest to gain an advantage over others by manipulating the occult laws, hidden laws. The false light can be alluring, but no temporary gratification is worth the soul bargaining cost. And that's a deep one, because when I talk about, if many of us knew that our actions here would actually affect where our essence, our soul goes after we transition from here, because you might not be able to carry all that stuff you collected back into this higher realm. So you go to an alternative place to clear that. So in that, knowledge or gnosis derives value from how it's applied, either in service to the demands of ego or in service to the collective evolution. So you can go in one direction of gaining knowledge. There's plenty of really intelligent, knowledgeable people that cross divine law and are not aligned with source. So intelligence is not just a factor, although a certain level of intelligence, you think, would incorporate psycho-self-analysis and someone to gauge, oh, I've strayed from this greater purpose, But that's where knowledge can be built off ideologies that are distorted too, like serving the self, because you don't even believe that there's some higher collective consciousness and some greater purpose to us being here. One is the true ascension pathway. The other is the pathway of the false light. So this statement, this reflection that we both read, and was super deep and powerful. We just wanted to kind of like pick apart and explore. And there's so many aspects that reverberate out from this distortion and these false circuits laid, like our lack of awareness to how energy transference works. And then the negative side, when we bring this artificial, egoic, self-serving fractal into how humans interact with each other, the negativity of energy transference as opposed to the positivity of energy transference, and that there are aspects where you can shield and protect yourself. You can transmute from your interactions with people, but you have to be aware that there's even an energy exchange in the first place. Any reflections on the energy transference side of it?
Yeah, I would just like to say that, it feels really apparent that in these times we're in currently, that the connection is the true level of currency these days. It's always true in business. It's not what you know, it's who you know. But at this point in time, all of the viewers and the people that are in the community and such doing their portion of the work and the pie and taking on the task, aligning with their purpose and doing their thing.
Takers and givers. There's takers and givers, keeping it simple, folks. Takers and givers. Either you're a giver or a taker. And again, we could break them down to these two categories. The Western mind really likes to categorize things, but it really is selfless or selfish. And unfortunately, when we fall down the egoic path, there's just so many webs to it. Sometimes we don't even realize how we become these byproducts that are ultimately taking from the collective evolving rather than contributing to it. Here's a few archetypals. The narcissist, the control freak and critic, passive-aggressive people, the drama king or queen. You might have some combination of this when you fall into the egoic mind and the elusive false identification of the I am. And so much of this stuff has been integrated through cultural observation, monkey see, monkey do, even through cultural material we've seen in movies that we've glorified, so much of it, and it's been orchestrated by those that have created these artificial matrices, and they've taught us these bad habits. They've normalized them in a lot of ways, even glorified them. And you better believe it started when we were children, and that's why it's pivotal that we bring awareness to this, to be able to inform and educate our littles. A lot of times, sadly, the kids today, because of this fake world and narcissism, they're actually seeing it even. They're seeing it in their parents. They're seeing things that are like, they're seeing it in their step-parents. They're seeing it in people, adults they're coming in contact with, that they're witnessing this and going, ugh, or they're being trained to it. They're being, role modeled, if you will. And we've talked so much about the inversion and polarity with the narcissism and the new cage movement with the narcissisterhood. Y'all, you can't steal that. We're already working on a website with that and t-shirts and stuff because it's a necessary political cause for us, narcissisterhood. But basically, it's really expanded into this new cage movement with the worship of the feminine and the goddess, and almost a male guilt projection that's come out. That's really just the toxic qualities of the masculine and feminine that have been inverted in both sexes. And you and I have talked a lot about this, and this concept that the feminine is really, through its relationship and addiction to control, loses the greatest role they get to play, which is to submit and surrender and forget about to the masculine. To life. Sorry, ladies. You don't want to submit to the masculine. You got to submit to life. You can't control life. You could try. But the whole point is to surrender and submit to the flow of life itself from the creator. So forget about the submission to the masculine. The men are already trying to control life. You have the ability to embody this full surrender to that flow and what can blossom from it. And you sacrifice it when you want to control things. And unfortunately, the masculine has gone so much into the flow and the surrender and the feelings. And this is a big one we didn't get to talk about yet, that I'm just going to briefly touch base on, because then I got to go pick up kids and we're just doing a short show. The masculine has not been trained to dominate and control and lead their mind or their heart first when developing from boy to manhood, like as a cultural ambition in our society that, you just know, I can't wait to grow up and be a man. And I'm really, you come in going, I have to dominate the thoughts and learn to master my thoughts, my mind, and my heart, because how can I lead and really be the masculine and lead and make clear judgments and hold that sacred responsibility of leading in a family, in partnership, if I can't do that internally with my own mind and my heart? So you have all these wishy-washy, undominant men in their own internal constitute. So they have no clue how to do that externally, just like we said with unconditionally loving ourselves. So I was really looking at the nuances of that. Isn't that cool? What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of it. The Holy Trinity is not just outside of us, but our brain, our heart, and our root, definitely drive the ship. And if we're only taught that the root drives or the head drives, but the heart is just there and not the driver, we're not really in our power, and it's not sustainable. What is that about? It can either be fast, cheap, and easy, or two, but not three of those things.
Yep.
And if we can align that third missing link and understand how our heart works as an electromagnetic driver of our actual ship, then we can realign pretty quick. But there's so many inversions. It's women are taught that in order to survive, we have to act like men because men survive and this is how they do it. So this is what we should do so we can get there. And now the messaging to men, pointing to this picture here, is men are idolized when they act like women. Not just the atrazine situation, but there's a lot of manly men that have been shamed and made look toxic. And yes, there's traits that are toxic in men and women.
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't have strong men that know how to fix things and go out on the leading edge to kind of pioneer something, and they're waiting for the women to lead, the women are like, well, where's the next one that can lead me? Because this is not it. This ain't it, chief.
Yep.
So we have women that are, acting as if men are disposable. We have men acting as if women are disposable. And in that, we're losing such an opportunity for true connection, true love, true presence, true seeing into self, true just relating with a human being. And I think there's a big part of me as a woman that has been really adamant about this aspect of having platonic friendships with people of the opposite sex, and especially in relationship, to still support your person, to have those relationships as well outside of the dynamic that are just platonic and supportive and creative. And people bring out all different sides of us because everybody's got different energy, and little portals open up where you get to have self-expression in a safe and platonic, healthy way without it being led from the base point. And at that rate, it brings so much community, so much connection, so much understanding, so much revelry for life and celebration, and it abolishes a lot of that root-driven ego scarcity of wanting to hoard and keep for myself and don't shine too bright because I'm scared of what is going to happen, and I need to shine in my own way that you can't control. It's like all sorts of distortions come out of just losing friendships. So that's been super near and dear to my heart. I grew up with a lot of girlfriends and a lot of guy friends, and have been the one token girl in these dynamics, and I'm like one of the dudes at this rate. And, it's the best. I'm like a fly on a wall into reality that a lot of people haven't conceptualized. And here they are demonizing it. Locker room chat is I'm not saying it's great, but like free speech, man. Like people say crazy things when they're not being listened to or watched. And I think that the best expression comes out when it's just pure and from the heart. So who are we to tell anybody to be smaller for our protection or safety? We're here to shine. And if we can't really treat each other with love and kindness, but truth and honesty and reflection of our own, dare I say, divinity, it's just a recipe for disaster, especially if we have false lights being idolized on platforms for who they pretend to be in the internet realm, but not how they actually are. If they're not walking their talk, like forget about it.
Well, and they've been able to
see through that a lot quicker.
They've been able to deceive, and that's the thing. But deceive who? Deceive the world. At some point, they're deceiving themselves, and they can't deceive the divine. So it seems very temporary and fleeting, of like they're just trying to hemorrhage water out of a sinking ship when you start this process. And now as we move into more plasmic light that can't be reflected, diverted, it's you're muted, so I don't have to hear you laugh at that wonderful tongue twister. That basically these aspects of diverting from the truth are falling away, and they will continue to. And it's all part of no coincidence that in prophecies from all over the world in every culture, it talked about a time where we would all really get to see where we're really at. And really the sad thing is we were supposed to be preparing with more awareness for what this is all about than we all have right now, which is a very kind of overshadowing nihilistic view that there isn't some great significance to this all and what we're all doing here. And that this is all part of a journey that, you know, we're going to have, you know, a very powerful reflection and review of. And this is a really good example I put up for Paramahansa Yogananda. He, you know, as we're coming to close, just talking about this love that I'm identifying what love is, you know, and then he even identifies it as human love. But I would even say that human love can be beautiful. This distortion, which is even what he's referencing here, don't yearn for human love. It will vanish. Behind human love is spiritual love of God. Seek that. Don't pray for a home or money or for your friendships. Don't pray for anything of this world. Enjoy only what the Lord gives you. All else leads to delusion. Man has come on earth solely to learn to know God. He is here for no other reason. So when that is your foundation, all those other things are beautiful manifestations of that divinely templated love for the divine and your relationship with the divine. But we've been taught to divert focus to all of these things. And even in the New Age, New Cage community, it's almost like all these things are going to support me to be able to do that inside with God. All the robes and crystals and fancy things. That's all a way I'm going to learn to love myself, because it's not established here. They still got distracted outwardly. It was just by things that were supposed to be spiritual on the path. Or I'm going to have to do all these things to become spiritual first, that I'm not just there as it is. And of course, alcohol, that's another huge influence that takes us out of our authentic self, and in many cultures believed it opened doorways for parasitic entities to come in and carry out a lot of these unconscious patterns. And over time, as you build a relationship with doing that, you build a relationship with them, which comes out in this behavior that's, again, still serving the self and makes everything less prepped for going internally in meditation, because it just doesn't seem as cool as this exciting world that we've all been taught to be enslaved to in the 5 sense reality. So it's meditation as a concept. Even we end up getting so hyperadrenalized. The concept of being able to be still inside of ourselves is almost impossible. And it's amazing just to see when I have patients on the table how hard it is for them to just lay in an integration for 8 or 9 minutes after we do one section of the body. They're on their phones, or they're not in their breath, and I'll have to come back in and be like, okay, this is when you want to be present to what's happening in your body, all the electrical movement and neural activity. And usually by the end of the series, they're able to do that more, but we have to like pull them out. They're so wired to it. Again, never has it become more apparent than it has this year, the last year, that you can stand next to another person and be existing in 2 completely alternative realities. And that is that split that we're talking about. So we just wanted to come on real quick, do a little segment of this, and bring it back to the love of the divine, because it's been really almost wiped out of all cultural things that exist. And we've been conditioned into bad patterns of oxytocin, dopamine, endorphins, serotonin. Your brain gets wired to this technology. It starts flooding it to you faster than reality does. So here's some healthier examples, if not in the spiritual practices and meditation and breath work, just even physical things you can do still outwardly in the 5 sense reality that are healthy versions to stimulate these, to break up the technological retardation that we're all becoming retards around. I'm sorry, it's just true. And yes, the ego eradicator. Here's an example of the spiritual sciences and why they're so powerful. This Kriya is for eradicating the ego. You have your thumbs here, you tuck your fingers and spread your palms, arms extended at 60 degrees. You're doing that breath of fire, pranayama. Okay, you do it for at least a minute, and then blow all the air out, breath out all the way breathless as long as you can. This kicks the body into hypoxia. It directs all the oxygenated blood through to the areas that need it the most. And then you take that deep breath, drawing the arms all the way above the head to where the thumbs touch. And then you extend, extend, extend. And then when you expand out, you want to transition to open palms with the fingers like light electricity expanding out. And you want to fan that energy around the auric field. 1 to 3 minutes. I'd say start with a minute even. But they're all here for us. So beautiful, Barefoot Chocolatini. You want to tell us about this as we're closing out and how people can reach you?
Yeah. Hey guys, we have these new baskets that are coming out. They're perfect for giving to your friends and family that love and miss Hawaii. They're all sourced locally through the islands, primarily Big Island for this selection. But we have some of the best chocolates I've come across in my decade or so of being out here looking for it and supporting these farmers, and some amazing tea for your mind, body, and soul from Shaka Tea, some biodynamic coffee, and the best Kiave honey I've found. So check it out. Send me an email, aloha@barefootchocolatini.com, or check the website. Find me on Instagram, Facebook as well. And these are coming soon. So get your orders in. We don't have that many.
And she's gonna throw that in the chat room too, just the email, even so you can reach out that way. A beautiful, well-rounded packet of some powerful medicine with the divine cacao. And yeah. Be sure to check out and share the film, release the movie part 1. We're still, trying to introduce it to the world. Go ahead. What'd you say?
I just watched it, as you know, and you guys should definitely check it out. It's pretty mind-blowing. I had been waiting for this to come out like 7 years, man. Finally. And just super grateful that it was completed and put out. I watched the director's cut, and it was super fun just to see, the whole deal. And yeah, I'm excited for you. I'm excited for everybody who gets the chance to watch this and just witness their own inner supernatural magical healing power, because we all have it. It's not just a select group of few people that have an electromagnetic heart. You have one too. And as soon as you realize that, your whole life can change.
True. We are all, we all have this amazing tech, and that's the powerful thing about it. So definitely trying to keep sharing it out there. We're deep in the throes of part 2, which comes out 11/11 this year. Super stoked. And check out all the other content on our channel. All kinds of videos to empower breath work, how to do this neuromuscular work and activate your inner physician. All that stuff's on there. And then, of course, we have our show tomorrow, getting back into the intel. A lot to get into on that tip, which we can't do here on YouTube, so we do it over on Rumble. And that's our show. Thank you, guys. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you, Maddy, for coming on with me. We're going to do something longer on one of our Sundays for sure. Yeah, I'm going to go get my kids now for this Sunday.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for being here too, and checking out what's going on and the positive side of all this Babylon falling. So yeah, aloha guys. It's
true. It's, we have to, there it is. We got to keep it positive, but it doesn't mean we don't look at the truth. This is part of how you gain knowledge and wisdom is really following where the truth goes. This is how we got into the deception, is we didn't want to look at some of these things. And so they just went on in the background, but we're moving into an age of disclosure, and that's uncovering so many layers, and it's a process. So get engaged in it. I promise you it'll make the whole process easier, and that's what we're here to do each week. So thank you. Yeah. Micah Sky here.
Get your chocolate bars.
Boom. Those look good. Yummy.
Super pure, organic, delicious, made with honey.
Yum. That's my fave.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maddie Smith. You guys have a blessed Sunday. We'll catch you on the flip side.